Hey everybody, Craig Hester here with R2AWatches.com. We are now in our fourth week of our new show, Keep Watching. And yes, we are still working on the logo, and I promise you we're going to have one soon. Thanks to everybody who watched last week and the tons of folks who picked up the sample watches that we had on sale. We still have some, but they've been going out fast. And the new old stock, we still have some of those as well, but they've been going out fast. Just a reminder, they're still the ones that are available. NOS 10 gets you 10% off of our already low prices, and SAM 10 gets you 10% off of our already low prices. The SAM 10 being the sample, and the NOS 10 being the new old stock. If you couldn't figure out that crazy code, we were keeping a pretty big secret there. So let me point out that this does come across on Facebook, and we do load it to YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We're trying to build up our subscriber base on YouTube. If you haven't liked the page R2AWatches.com on Facebook, be sure and do so there. We're looking into trying to figure out other places that we can stream live, possibly Instagram. We don't know yet, but right now this is what we're doing. And we appreciate everybody who's been watching over the last 4 weeks, and we hope to continue to build the viewership up. This week is an all Vostok Europe show. We are focusing on a very particular set of watches from Vostok Europe that were actually built for our company and for our sister distribution company in the UK. These are the new collection of radio rooms and a couple of new Expedition North Poles. I've only actually got one of the new Expedition North Poles we're going to be talking about today, but we do have the new radio rooms. Now, I did a close-up video, some of you may have seen, where I'm just showing the watch with my hands, but I wanted to spend a little more time on these and take the time to do it in the detailed show here on Keep Watching, because one of the things that we're going to really be trying to do with this show is take a little more time and not just be doing like the 5 or 10 minute videos where the quick hits, where I'm just explaining the watch real quick and it's just enough to show you what it looks like. The idea here is we can take a little more time, we can talk about the watches, we can give you the details that you guys like to have, and those of you who aren't interested in the in all of the length of it, you can cut to whatever's interesting for you. So we hope that this is becoming something that you're going to enjoy watching every week. And for those of you who can stand looking at me week in, week out, I give you the kudos. Okay, so before I get into the specifics of every watch and the story of the radio room and so forth, and that's what we're going to deal with for the bulk of this presentation here on Keep Watching, I want to let you guys know about a special that we have, a real special deal that's only available through Keep Watching, and by picking it up on a coupon code I'm going to tell you about in just a second, here from Keep Watching, our regular weekly show. We're going to add in with the radio rooms and the Expedition, and this is only with the 5 that we're showing here on the show today. There are 2 other Expedition North Poles. They're rose gold. One's got a black dial, one has a blue dial. We're not talking about those in this show today, other new ones, I mean. But coming with the radio rooms and the one yellow Expedition North Pole today is going to be the really amazing dive case that Vostok Europe has had for many years now, and it is a top quality dive case. Usually you would get the radio room watch in the standard Vostok Europe packaging, which is fine. It's great packaging, but we all know that the dive case is really something special. This is a case that you usually only get with the highest end of Vostok Europe watches. You only will get it with the Anchar or the Luna Code 2 or the Energia. Well, the Energia actually has a different dive case, but anyway, they reserve these top quality dive cases for the higher ends. But we're going to do a special deal if you use the coupon code EXPRR, another one of those really secret things for you to figure out there, and just crack that code, that EXP for Expedition, RR for Radio Room. If you just use EXPRR when you check out at R2AWatches.com, you'll get the dive case, and you're also going to get an additional strap. Usually the radio room in the Expedition comes with the leather strap, and it doesn't come with any additional straps. Again, that's also something that tends to be done on the higher end spectrum of Vostok Europe. You're going to get a NATO strap that's going to come along with it in the dive case, and this is a serious dive case, guys. I'm going to talk about that more later in the show. I'll go into details about it, but this isn't just a plastic box. This is a real dive case, Pelican case, whatever you prefer to call it, and you got to pick it up with that coupon code here through Keep Watching. 4 of these are the radio rooms, and I'm going to explain the radio room in just a minute and what that all means right here in terms of why it's called the radio room for those of you who may not be familiar with that. But I want to quickly show you that there is a red and white style. This is the most traditional to the original radio room clocks, like the one you see over my shoulder here. Okay, then we have, well, this is an Expedition, so we'll come back to that. Then we have the black and red, so this is just kind of turning that color scheme on its head. So all black PVD, black, mostly black dial with the red. Then we have the blue and that kind of sea foam green, which is just a stunning color combination on this. I'm trying to get a really good close-up on that feed with the blue and that sea foam green. That's just amazing, that furnace blue on this. And then the final one is kind of a little more unusual look. We did like an electric blue with a what I would call a sunray light gray. It's not a charcoal, it's certainly not dark, it's like a light gray, and this is on the matte stainless case. So for those of you who are not familiar with the radio room, since we are doing this in the weekly show, I'm going to take a little more time to explain what the radio room is all about. The first thing of note is that this all grew out of the Titanic disaster. If you're familiar with the Titanic and its story, obviously, you know, a lot went wrong. It's obvious. Actually, I think it would be easier to describe what went right, to name what went right with the Titanic, than the whole list of things that went wrong. But one of the things that added to the loss of life after they hit the iceberg was the difficulty of the radio room operators to get through the chatter on the radio and get their SOS out. So after that happened, the International Maritime Commission in the United States created what was called the Radio Room Act of 1912. What that act did, it did a number of things. It added a 24-hour rotation in the radio room, because that didn't exist before. There wasn't a mandatory 24-hour rotation, so there could actually have been times during the day or night that there wasn't someone actually manning the radio. So that mandated that going forward. And then it created these radio silence periods. And that's what these pie pieces or wedges or whatever you prefer to call them are all about on the dial of the watch. These are the radio silence periods. Now, when the act was first passed, there was only 2 periods, and I believe they were at the top and bottom of the hour, and not at the 15 and 45. And then later they added the additional ones. They felt like it was better to make sure that there was at least 1 period in every 15-minute segment. Actually means you were never more than 12 minutes away from a radio silence period. And what does that mean? That means that during that time period, you can't go on the radio and say, "Hey Joe, do you want to get together and have a beer?" You can't, when we get into port, you can't talk about, what your cargo is, or just chit chat, or even anything else that may be important, but it's not emergency flash traffic. It has to be an SOS. You have to be a mayday. You have to have something going on that's requiring somebody to come and give you assistance. So that is why those periods are there. And in fact, I also find it quite interesting. And to be clear, this is still the same through to today. This is not something that just started after the Titanic and lasted for a while. This is still the rule of the sea today. The top period, you can only, the top and bottom of the hour, where it's kind of light there, and you can see it in the big clock up here. It's a little lighter. There you can only use Morse code, and then when you get to the periods where it's a full deep saturation of color, there you can actually talk on the radio. So that is the technical aspect of why we created a radio room watch. Now, why did we do that in a Vostok Europe? And by the way, let me back up. I think it's probably good for the newbies who don't know. Vostok Europe is based in Vilnius, Lithuania. They build watches for going to extremes, and every watch is designed by their own in-house designers there. Every watch is fully designed from start to finish. Every watch is hand assembled there by a team of 7 watchmakers. They do a tremendous amount of things for a boutique watch brand. Having been in this business for many, many years, I know that a lot of boutique brands don't necessarily do all of the things that Vostok Europe does. You can look up Vostok Europe online. On Facebook, you're going to see there are tons of fans out there, people who love these watches, and there are big fans of the Radio Room. So getting back to why we did this in a Vostok Europe. Well, first of all, the clock you're looking at behind me was made by the Vostok company of Chistopol, Russia. And I like to point out that Vostok is a different company than Vostok Europe. They are an entirely different company. They made that clock, and they made the movement that's in this watch. And that was one of the things we insisted on for the Radio Room, because of course Vostok Europe has started sourcing movements from all over the world, and not just from Vostok anymore. Used to be exclusively in Vostok Europe was only the Vostok movements, but that changed several years ago. And now they source movements for all kinds of different reasons from different parts of the world, because they want different functionalities and so forth. But this movement is the 32 jewel automatic mechanical movement built by the Vostok company of Chistopol, Russia. And that actually also originally was proprietary movement only to Vostok Europe, but Vostok Europe has allowed them to release it to other companies in recent times. But we wanted the original movement from Vostok because they made the clock you see behind me, and they still make Radio Room clocks through to today. In fact, once a year we do a sale at r2awatches.com, and when that comes up, I'll do a show about it, where we're able to get the clocks in. They're really, because of their weight and everything, it's a big deal to get them in. So we only do it once a year, sometimes even less than that, where you can actually still get the Radio Room clocks that they build for Russian ships and other ships around the world. So that's why we insisted on the Vostok movement being in this watch. But we also didn't want to just mimic the clock. So there's a couple of new things here that are important. This is the first time the Radio Room has been in what you can obviously tell is the Expedition North Pole case. It was a little more difficult to tell with the previous versions, which were in the N1 rocket case, that they were an N1 rocket because of the way the configuration was changed a little bit, and it wasn't quite so clear. Anybody who knows the Expedition North Pole is going to know this is the Expedition North Pole case, especially when I show you an Expedition North Pole, which is in a Radio Room. But this was the first time that we did it in this case. For a number of reasons, we made the change. It gave us the opportunity to use a different movement with different complications, because in the older version of the Radio Room, it was a dual time construction. In this one, you have the two additional complications. We have the 24-hour disc, and you have the day-night indicator. It also gave an opportunity to really, really focus on the dial. And I want to point that out because it's, the fact that there's no bezel, there's no rotating bezel on this watch. The dial goes all the way to the edge of the bezel, and because so much about the Radio Room is about the dial and seeing that big unusual dial, we wanted to focus on that, and having the Expedition North Pole be the case that we used gave us that opportunity, because I don't think there's a bigger dial in the Vostok Europe lineup. It's not the biggest watch that Vostok Europe makes, but I definitely think it's the biggest dial. So you're really getting that look of the Radio Room. So some other quick specs about this watch I think are important to point out. It is a 48 millimeter timepiece. These are all surgical grade stainless steel. It is a K1 mineral crystal on it. This is a 200 meter water resistant timepiece. So that means it is a true dive quality watch. Anything 200 and above is considered a professional grade diver's watch. It has an exhibition case back, so you can see the movement. I didn't remove the plastic here, but you can see. I'm going to try to get close up on the close feed. And you can see that beautifully decorated movement. It has the blued screws, the great decoration on the rotor, that special rotor made just for Vostok Europe. It comes with this magnificent strap. Let me get one. Actually, I'm going to show it on the yellow because this is a great one to really show the strap that's on the Expedition North Pole. The Expedition North Pole strap, first of all, Vostok Europe makes fabulous straps. I mean, they've just taken strap making to a whole new art. This one, you've got multi-level, easy for me to say, multi-level layers of leather. That should be a new tongue twister. Multi-level layers of leather. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Anyway, you've got multiple legs. I'm going to quit saying that. Okay. it's important to point out that you see that yellow stripe there. That is not just a painted on stripe on the leather or dyed on or whatever terminology you want to use. That is a separate piece of leather, and I hope I can get the edge there so you can see it. It's actually below the level of these two other strips that are sewn on individually beside. So let me get, so you can really see it. You've got, let me, right in here, okay. You've got the top layer, and that's one whole layer of leather there. Then you've got the whole layer of leather here, and then beneath that is another layer with the contrast color. Now, how often do you see that? Usually, if you're going to have a stripe on a watch strap, it's just one piece of leather and there's a stripe down the middle, which, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but this takes it to another level. It also has the double tang buckle, which gives you that extra security that you know the watch isn't going to flop off your wrist, and it's just super comfortable. It is a 24 millimeter, so if for some reason you didn't like this strap, it would be easy to change it out with another one. I can't imagine someone not liking the Expedition North Pole or the new radio room strap. I love the rivets against the case. Let's see if there's one where they have contrast. Yeah, here you can see the contrasting rivets against the case. You know, it's just it's among those kinds of things that I think set Vostok Europe apart, in that they really pay attention to all the little details. You know, so the watch has what I like to describe, and anybody who's been watching me for years, they've heard me say this phrase once, they've heard me say it a million times, a throughput of design and styling. And what that means to me is that nothing on the watch looks like, why the heck did they put that on that watch? Or that doesn't really fit. Why does this have an onion crown on it when it's this, or whatever? You know, for any example like that. I think Vostok Europe does an excellent job of every particular aspect of the watch. Or maybe another way of putting it is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, you know, because each part leads into the overall look, feel, and design of the watch. And that's, again, spoken to in those rivets and the other things about the strap. I did mention that there is an Expedition North Pole. That is the yellow one here. This is the case, again, the Expedition North Pole case. Expedition North Pole, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we've talked so much about the radio room here, but it was a 9-month floating ice station that left the North Pole in the 1930s. It was a scientific expedition. And it set many records. One of the things that I find interesting is that when they were picked back up at the end, they were brought back by the Yermak, which I've always wanted to design a watch around the Yermak, which I may at some point for Pramsius, and if Igor doesn't do one for Vostok Europe, which was the world's first icebreaker. So I find that interesting in and of itself. So that was the inspiration for this one. Normally, with the Expedition North Pole, there is a design on the back showing the guys on the floating ice station and so forth. But because this one does have the decorated Vostok movement in it, it's going to have the exhibition case back. So again, if you pick up one from this show, from the weekly Keep Watching show, it will come with the dive case. And I like to point out too, Vostok Europe makes a serious dive case. I mean, this is not just a plastic case. You know, there's a lot of plastic cases out there, and again, I always try to be careful. I'm not denigrating those cases. They're actually well made, and they're usually much better than anything you're going to get in, say, cardboard or whatever. But Vostok Europe wants their cases to actually be something that would be usable in an actual sporting situation, particularly with boating. This is 10 ATM water resistant in and of itself. They actually do drop tests on these boxes before they ship them out. They drop them from, I think, 3 meters down to on a piece of concrete, and then they test them for water resistance. And they don't drop every one, obviously, that would not make any sense, but they test some throughout the batches to make sure that they're maintaining the whole quality of construction. You can actually put a lock on this one. It's kind of, both sides can be locked. All of the stuff inside will come out. So if you want to have this, you know, you can take this out. You can take the whole guts out that holds the watch. But if you want to use this when you're boating, it's going to float, or in any other situation like that, this is just a great utility box to be used separately, just even from the watch. It'll come with the additional strap. In the case of the red, we actually found this one that we had in stock. That actually is orange, but it really matches up really well with the lighter color on there. So you're going to find it's going to be a oddly really works. With the other ones, we've got either it's going to be all black, coming with the black PVD versions, or you're going to have the black with the blue stripe coming with the blue versions. And that would be, again, if you use the coupon code EXPRR when you check out at r2awatches.com. That's R, the number 2, the letter A, watches.com. That's where Keep Watching is based. Also, I want to let you know, we are the distributors for Vostok Europe and North America, and these watches are available at other retailers. They're available at Altivo. They're available at greattiming.net. They're available at Island Watch. So, we would obviously love for you to do business with us at r2awatches.com, but we're happy if you're buying a Vostok Europe from any one of our authorized retailers in North America. So, I think that's enough for this week. This is going over the new radio room watches. These have only been out like a month at most from Vostok Europe for going to extremes. I am Craig Hester, again, the president of the Détente Watch Group and r2awatches.com, and this is Keep Watching. And as I always say, until next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, when we have the next Facebook Live presentation of Keep Watching. As I always say, keep watching.